as the COVID crisis continues to devastate our community and to devastate our county if we're not taking proper precautions, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be speaking with a number of experts who are on the front lines helping people deal with this incredibly difficult situation. So I'm here today with Rick Tannenbaum, who is an attorney from Clarkstown. And Rick has been working to help small businesses access some of the resources that are out there to help them get through these times, help them get loans, help them get assistance from the government to make sure they can keep their doors open and be able to come out of this in a good position. So Rick, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me about this and hopefully share some of your expertise with the businesses that are looking for help. Do you want to just, yeah, absolutely. Do you want to just take a minute and let people know kind of what your background is and what are some of the things that are out there?
So I'm an attorney by training. I have been practicing in real estate for the last 30 years or so. And, one of the factors in real estate is that many landlords who have tenants are unable to pay rent, and they've been looking to government programs to help them with both rent, payroll, utilities, expenses of running their businesses. And when this pandemic struck and businesses were ordered to close, people looked to government for support, and I've been able to help navigate the process to enable small businesses to avail themselves of those programs.
Great, that's great. So what are some of the major programs out there that small businesses can take advantage of?
Well, other than private programs, which people go to banks and borrow money, there are really two major government programs. One has been in existence for a long time. It's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
Okay.
When New York was considered a disaster area back in March, it made all small businesses eligible to apply for these loans. This is the type of loan that normally, there's a tornado or a hurricane or a flood.
Right.
And this program has been available for a long time. When the pandemic made New York a disaster area, small businesses became eligible. So the way the program works, there's a really positive, quick aspect to it, and there's the longer-term program. But it's up to a $2 million loan available to small businesses. Small businesses are generally defined as 500 employees or less. There are some provisions for certain types of businesses that are not eligible. There are provisions for types of businesses that are presumably eligible but have to pass a few hurdles. It's also available to freelancers, gig workers, independent companies, and even companies with no employees. So if you run your own small business and you're having trouble, making ends meet, this program's available. So it is a loan program, but it can be converted into a total forgiveness program if you use the funds for certain things, mostly primarily payroll and employee benefits. But you can also use it for lease or mortgage payments, utilities, and other expenses. But the amount of how you use it determines how much is forgivable. Mm-hmm. So the best part of this loan program is that it's directly through the SBA, so you don't have to go through a bank, and you can apply online. And it's a self-certifying program, which means that you basically make representations online of your eligibility, and you're eligible for a $10,000 immediate grant. And the grant does not have to be paid back. Even if you're ultimately denied the loan, for whatever reason, a credit score or you're just not eligible, you don't have to pay back the $10,000 grant.
That's
so
great.
There's virtually, few reasons why somebody shouldn't apply for it. The only reasons would be obviously it's a loan, and if you're not going to use it for the specified purposes, then you do have to pay it back. Mm-hmm. So nonprofits are eligible, for-profits are eligible. The for-profit rate is 3.75% on a 30-year loan. The non-for-profit is 2.75% on a 30-year loan, and I think that most people who are taking these loans are using it for the purposes that would make them forgivable. So it seems like a program that is well established, ready to go, and the website will indicate that they'll fund the $10,000 grant within 3 days of a completed application, and it funds directly to your bank account. So there's a lot of information you have to provide. There's all sorts of information about your business and yourself that you have to provide online, and they are equipped to process these loans and have been processing them since. I think it was since about March 20th, they've been pretty successful at doing it.
So you've been working with businesses locally to help them deal with the paperwork on that, and how has that been going?
It's going fine. It's really a function of how well organized the business is and
Okay.
how able they are to provide the information. The website indicates it's a 2.5-hour application process. I finish them in about an hour sometimes. And it really is a function of, they're going to ask you how many employees you have, what your payroll is, what your sales are, what your cost.
Right.
They want to know how long you've been in business. They want to know about the owners and ownership. They'll ask you all sorts of disqualifying questions. Do you earn your money through, legal gambling or prurient businesses? There's all sorts of limits. There are also some limits on franchises, because sometimes a franchise faces an issue of being part of a much larger company, and they might not fit the Small Business Association definition of a small business. But actually 100% independently owned, you could usually get past that hurdle as well. So, the application process is a little bit complicated, but, I've taken people through it. It's been successful. The funds are starting to arrive, and it seems like if you need it, it's there for you.
So that's good to hear. And you said it's a $10,000, sort of a $10,000 grant, but then there could be a larger loan?
Up to $2 million.
Okay. And so if a business is approved for that loan, how soon do they start to get those funds?
About 30 days or so. Okay. So the process for the grant is quick and painless. But once you get approved for the grant, then they send you a package for a much more detailed level of information that you have to provide to get the full loan. But it does go through the SBA. The other program that I guess we'll talk about is the Paycheck Protection Program, goes through banks.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that was something which I know was created as part of the federal stimulus bill that passed a week or two ago. And there's been a lot of press about it. Seems like a really good program in theory, where people can get access to loans that are completely turned into forgivable grants, in a sense, if they spend a certain percent on payroll, I think. But I know there's been concerns about the banks not being ready, or the website not being ready to process that at the federal level. What are you seeing?
Well, that's exactly right. And what it is the regulation. Well, the legislation passed a while ago, a week or more ago. The regulations just came out on Friday. Okay. So until Friday, there was no bank who was able to do the lending. But Sunday it started, and Monday, some of the banks are up and running. Some of them are still kind of figuring out how to get up and running. But the program is you go to your bank, even though it's an SBA guaranteed loan, and the bank is actually the underwriter. They make the decision that whether to lend instead of the SBA. So the information that they seek, is a year's or more worth of your payroll information. They'll cover your health insurance. They'll cover employer contributions to 401k plans. They want a lot of details about your employees, how much each earns. There's a limit on how much somebody could earn to be forgiven or not. And basically the threshold is that you could borrow 2.5 times of your monthly payroll under the program. So I know that the banks are inundated with the applications, and I don't know, actually I don't know anybody who has completed one yet, but I'm sure that, that everybody is furiously working to do that. It's also a completely forgivable program, provided you use the money as intended, and it also requires that you maintain your employees on payroll, whether they're
Rick,
your employees, then you lose part of the forgiveness.
The connection lagged there for a minute. You said maintain your employees on payroll.
If you don't maintain them on payroll, then you lose part of the forgivable aspect. Got it. So the goal of the program is to keep people employed and to keep them off unemployment, which is, I guess, the other thing that that we should talk about briefly if that's something that people are interested in. But traditionally unemployment has not been available for self-employed people, gig workers, 1099 contractors. And the way that the new legislation works is that if you could get unemployment through your state, the federal government will kick in an additional $600 per week.
Which I think is a really good addition to the program, right? I mean, that can significantly help people in this situation.
I think it would make the difference in people's lives because, in fact, even in New York, if you get a full unemployment benefit, it's not even $600 a week. So this is a way to basically replace a salary that you might not otherwise have. There is a threshold that you have to qualify. There's a whole litany of ways that you qualify, including things like just having kids in school and you're unable to work, or your workplace has been closed, or you've been tested positive, or a family member's been tested positive. All the information is online. One of the problems is that if you are self-employed, there's a second step to obtain the benefits, which requires a phone conversation with the Department of Labor. And
they're overwhelmed, right?
And they're more than overwhelmed. I think there are people who have tried hundreds of times to get through and just are completely unable to get through.
I've talked to some people who are in that boat, and they are finding, like you said, dozens, if not 100 calls. I understand that the Labor Department is trying, they've added something like 700 new staff to answer phones, and they're trying to do sort of a staggered, different last names on different days to call in, but it's still, it's really, I think it's unacceptable. I mean, we got people that have lost their jobs and are desperate to know when they're going to get some help coming in, and the state bureaucracy is really keeping them in limbo. And it's true. It's true that no matter when you get through, you will ultimately be qualified for the unemployment that you would have got when you first became unemployed. So you're not losing the money.
That's right.
But people have bills to pay.
Right. It's nice, but if you need the money now, it's
got to get fixed. And so I hope that the governor and I hope that the Department of Labor are working to fix that as soon as possible.
Sure. One takeaway from this is that most people are daunted by the process of applying through the SBA and through the banks. And while it is a complicated and daunting process, people do navigate it, and people like me help people navigate it. And the money does come, and it is there. And even though all of the regulations are maybe not crystal clear about how you're supposed to use the money to get it forgiven, the intent of the law is to forgive the loans and enable the economy to maintain itself, through this pandemic. So I'd encourage people to participate.
This is really helpful, I think, for a lot of folks who are listening. If you're a small business out there, what's the first step that you should be taking at this point if you need help?
Well, I would say to organize your financial information, because the questions that they're going to ask you need to answer. You can't leave a line blank. You can't guess. You can't really estimate. Because you are self-certifying that the information that you provide is accurate. So, if you're going to do it yourself, that's terrific. It can be done yourself. If you engage a consultant to do it, that's terrific too. But I think that you need to be organized. You need to know, everything about your business, including, what your payroll costs are, what benefits you're offering people, what your pension obligations are. They're going to ask you what your sales are, what your cost of goods sold are. It's a kind of thing where if you're not a great organized person or you're not a great bookkeeper, you'll have trouble with the application. But there are people out there to help, and it's something that the government is offering, and it's something that people are really counting on just to get through this.
That's great. That's great. So Rick, thank you so much. Is there anything else before we sign off? Is there anything else you want to add for people that are looking for some assistance and trying to figure out how to navigate this process? I'd offer up my email address. It's rick.tannenbaum@live.com. If you put it on your page or your site, people could find that as well. Or to call. Everybody's available right now, and I'm available to help. So thank you for this opportunity to talk about it, and I hope people avail themselves of it. Great. Well, Rick, thank you so much. I hope you and your family stay well, stay safe, and thanks for what you're doing to help businesses navigate this process.
Same to you. Take care of yourself.
Take care.